It is Monday, October 7th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. I am Chris Rose, 3,000 miles away from my buddies who are together after their Giants were triumphant out in Seattle. They had a big old watch party. Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik. How'd it go yesterday?
Oh, it went wonderful. And, Giants took it to the Seahawks, even though they fumbled on the inch-yard line. Never got a great replay from that CBS. That was returned for a touchdown the first drive, and then we thought our lives were over, and they weren't over. They won.
And I slept in the office.
And I'm going back to Hurricane tonight. I'm excited for it.
Oh, yeah. Be careful, dude.
Yeah, it's actually going to – I'm not excited for it. But it's gonna be all right. We're going to be all right.
Can you actually fly in there?
I bet. I hope so. I'm screwed.
Well, I did read that the Buccaneers are flying out on Tuesday for, I think, their game in New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they should.
So you should be okay. I'm a big travel nerd, so I just want you to be all right.
Can we come stay with you, Chris?
No, absolutely not. No, that is not. I like being married a lot. And so my wife would take one look at the two of you, and she'd be like, I'm out. So
none of the 5 spare bedrooms we could use?
There's only 2 at this point with the son at college. So, you guys actually, you know what? I could put a bunk bed together for the 2 of you.
Oh,
Which one of you 2 would actually be on top of the bunk bed?
Fuck you, Brennan.
So much room for activities.
All right, guys, we are going to get to it. It was a fun, eventful week 5, some amazing finishes. We're going to start off with our La Vida Más Fina game of the week. It is brought to you by Corona. And so let's start with the first battle in the AFC North this season. It was a good one. Ravens a winner, 41-38 in overtime on a Justin Tucker 24-yard field goal. The Ravens actually got the ball to start overtime and fumbled. And then Zach McPherson pulled a 53-yarder when his rookie holder totally botched that. And so the Ravens improved to 3-2 after an 0-2 start. They've won 3 straight. The Bengals fall to 1-4. Both quarterbacks were utterly fantastic. Lamar threw for 4. Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns and 392 yards. Guys, let's actually start with the Bengals because, Penik, I know, weren't they your Super Bowl winning pick this year?
Yes. Yes, they were.
And so how do we feel about them now?
Number 5 scoring offense.
Yeah, they're great to watch.
There's still like a path for the Bengals to be a good football team, but their record is
they're not going to make the playoffs.
Or they're not. There's just so much. There's such an uphill. I don't know if I'm there yet, Bobby. I don't know if I'm willing to commit to that yet, but there's just such an uphill climb for them, and it's their defense, man. It's their defense, and they just can't seem to finish out football games and win football games. And that's a problem. No matter how good their offense is, we've seen plenty of teams that have good offenses that their defense holds them back, allowing a ton of points, allowing a ton of yards, allowing explosive plays, and not being able to finish out football games. And that's where the Cincinnati Bengals are as a team right now, no matter how much talent they have offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I mean, they have the number 5 scoring offense, but they have the 31st scoring defense. And the only team worse than them is the team they beat in the Panthers. That's the only team they were able to beat was the Carolina Panthers, right? We think about how bad they are, and they only beat them by 10 points. Like, the offense is good. We all know that, right? It's a shame that any one of these quarterbacks had to lose this game because they both played fantastic. Both had dumb plays at the end of the game that should have lost them the game. But this defense is awful. It is awful. There is no pass rush. They weren't able to pressure Lamar at all. Lamar was able to sit back in the pocket, and then when he would get pressured for 5 seconds, he escaped and made crazy play after crazy play. This was such a Lamar hero game. Giving up a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. That defense is pitiful, and it can maybe get it has the talent to maybe get back to an average defense, but they just lost Dax Hill. For the season. That defense holds them back. No matter how good that offense is, that defense is going to hold them back. They don't have a pass rush, and they can't win without a pass rush.
Well, they don't even have to be an average defense, though. The way Joe Burrow has played the last 3 games, you could make it. I think he's played the best of any quarterback in the NFL. He has been outstanding. Jamar Chase is a grown man. I don't know what his contract's going to look like, but I would like to be his agent. The defense does not. That's the point, I think, about this team. It doesn't have to be like top 20, I would settle for if I were a Bengals fan, but they cannot come up with a stop when they most need it. They just can't do it. And by the way, I do want to say one thing about this game. Zach Taylor screwed up. After the turnover in overtime, they get the ball. They're on the fringe of field goal territory. So it's a low 50s. I think it would have been a 53-yarder is what it ended up being. They ran the ball 3 straight times. You have got probably the most accurate quarterback in the NFL working right now. I know Jaden Daniels' completion percentage, but I'll take Joe Burrow in a throwing contest right now. You've got Joe Burrow. He's not going to make a boneheaded mistake. Go get another 10 yards. Now, some people say, well, if the rookie holder just holds the ball, McPherson had connected on 14 straight field goals in the fourth quarter and overtime. I understand all that. It's still 53 yards. I'd rather have a 38-yarder than a 53-yarder. I thought Zach Taylor stopped playing too soon.
Yeah, didn't they get pushed out of like range at one point before they see, that's where I'm like, I don't, let me look back at it because
they ran 3 straight times after they forced the Jackson fumble. They did not let Burrow throw it.
Yeah, I was just going back to the end of the fourth quarter. I was wrong. Yeah, I guess you can nitpick, but at the same time, like you mentioned, McPherson has been that good. But to me, it's like that's bearing the lead on. It's just that defense is so pathetic.
Yeah, it stinks.
And on the flip side, man, Lamar, right?
Great.
This was a question mark. Now, again, I don't. The Bengals defense is awful, right? Like pitiful. But man, he made like hero play after hero play.
Yep.
Right, like the 3rd and 5 touchdown to Bateman on the scramble. You know, the 2nd and goal one where they fumble the snap. And Lamar just runs backwards, runs away,
throws from out of bounds.
Throws the ball while moving out of bounds across his body, like not in like wide open, like coverage around Isaiah Likely touchdown. That's nuts. And with Derrick Henry, like every short yardage situation is a good spot for them. Like they get it every single time. And then when you keep pounding and pounding, you get that 51-yarder by Derrick Henry. So. Zay Flowers had himself a good game, too. So like
best yardage game of his career.
So offensively, they're not overly talented, and I think other pass rush teams can maybe take advantage of them. But they've bounced back from 0-2. They're now 3-2, and you know what? The AFC is kind of filled with flawed teams. So maybe talking about them maybe not being as good as last year. Well, what team is as good as last year outside of the Houston Texans? That's a contender in the AFC.
Well, I will say this: there are flawed teams in the NFC as well, as we will continue on this journey throughout the show. And who would have thunk it that on week 6, I would be so excited for a Ravens-Commanders game. But I cannot wait for that coming up next week. We'll break that down on our next show. But
I have one more thing I have to say to John Harbaugh.
What's that?
4th and 1, tight end under center tush push with Charlie Kohler. Never do that shit again. They converted it. You have Derrick Henry, Patrick Ricard, and Lamar Jackson, and you put Charlie Kohler under center. Never do that again.
These coaches can't help themselves. They
Please
really can't.
Never do that shit again. They got it, and I wanted to like throw something at John Harbaugh when I saw that.
With all that being said, through 5 games, I'm going to say that the Ravens are my favorite to make it out of the AFC.
This was a huge test for them because something that we were talking about. Oh, you got to be careful with the Ravens because you can't. You're not always going to get ahead by 3 scores in every single game. Well, they were behind by 10 points at 2 points in the fourth quarter. 31-21 and then 38-28, and they came back from both of them. So the Bengals defense is horrible, but still Lamar Jackson is the one that's orchestrating those comebacks. So they passed the test. I mean, I still don't think that Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers is good, but I still don't think those guys are like those, like alpha wide receivers, like it's throwing to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, nowhere near the same level. So I think Lamar Jackson, in terms of this may be bad to say, but right now I almost think Lamar's playing better than his MVP self last year. Because if you look at the team, like that was just a more talented team last year. The offensive line, Derrick Henry wasn't involved, but you had Odell, you had Aguilar, you had Flowers. He had all these. I think the receivers were
the
better.
offensive line was better.
You had a more involved Mark Andrews last year before he got hurt. So I almost think like this Ravens team is way more Lamar dependent than kind of they ever have been, and he's measuring up to those expectations.
Well, he's had to play hero ball this year where he didn't last year, and we forget like even though
they just kicked the crap out of teams last year.
Even though he did win MVP last year, that was one of the worst statistical MVPs ever. Like he has a higher touchdown rate this year, has a less than half of the interception rate better. And then we know the rushing yards are really good as well. But I still have the Chiefs over them, and they won that matchup. I do think that D-line can make that Ravens team pay, and I just trust Mahomes more than Lamar in the playoffs. But the Ravens have really bounced back from 0-2.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you guys a little bit. I actually think I like some of the pieces. Like I like Charlie Kolar. I like Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is kind of
tight end trio.
Is kind of a bit player. I mean, they finally got him involved yesterday. I obviously love Derrick Henry. I always enjoyed Zay Flowers. He's not a true number one, but he's a really good football player. Rest of the wideouts, I don't think the wideout room is any better or any worse than it was last year. Odell was just a name. He wasn't a player. So I actually like what they're doing, and I think by the end of the year, you're going to be like, man, I think the Ravens have more weapons than I believed at the beginning of 2024.
The tight ends are the key. And the weapons, they don't have that great receiver outside of Flowers, and I agree. Odell was their second best receiver last year, but he wasn't that good.
Right.
But it's the offensive line I do worry about, and the defense. Like, they lost coach. Their defense got boat raced in this game too, is a worry for me, where last year they were the number one defense in the NFL. This year they're nowhere near that. I worry about that offensive line, but I agree. I like the tight ends had 10 catches, 132 yards, and 3 touchdowns, right? Charlie Kolar was my tight end too in that class. I love some Kolar. I'm glad to see him starting to emerge a little bit. But I just think that defense and their offensive line is like a huge downgrade from where they were last year. But the Henry's a huge upgrade too.
That was the game of the week brought to you by Corona. And you know what we always try and be around here? A fan that never loses. And here's what I mean. The Browns have been getting their butt kicked every week pretty much. But even when they lose, still love the game. I got the passion. I love my football, not just because I work in it, but it is something that's in my DNA. Because whether it's a big deep pass or a conversion on 3rd and 4th or short, or just a great tailgate out in the parking lot, which my boys always take in, there's something to cheer for. And the best beer to pair with those awesome moments, it's Corona. Corona's all about finding the maximum amount of joy with every moment of the game, win or lose, home or road. It's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come along with it. So cheers to everybody who loves this game beyond the scoreboard. Corona for the fan who never loses. Get yours at ordercorona.com for 21 and over. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
It's also the best hurricane beer.
Ooh.
Too. So I have my fridge. Got to get, get some ice. Got to keep the Coronas in there with water, plenty of water. And I'll show you, Tornado. I love myself a hurricane Corona.
The Texans outlast the Bills in a battle of 3-1 teams, 23-20 your final. Kaimi Fairbairn from 59 yards out as time expires. Can you believe that was his 8th field goal already this season of 50-plus yards? C.J. Stroud, another great game, 331, threw only 1 touchdown, did have a pick. Josh Allen, statistically, one of the worst games we have seen in the last several decades. 9 of 30. 9 of 30. That is the worst percentage of a passer who threw at least 30 passes in a single game over the last 3+ decades. Overall, Nico Collins caught 2 passes before exiting stage left with a hamstring injury. Yes. Stephon Diggs, 6 catches for 82 yards in a game that he said meant a lot more to him than perhaps he let on heading into the week. Overall, Bobby, your biggest takeaway from this game was?
Well, my biggest one was just like Josh Allen sucked in this game, right? Like he just flat out played bad. First drive of the game, they have Mac Hollins on a double move. He misses him.
Yeah.
Later in the game on a 3rd down, he's rolling to his left. Mac Hollins wide open in the field. he misses them. Like, he was just flat out bad in this game. If it wasn't for a 4th and 5, effort from Keon Coleman, it would have looked much worse than what it was. The Texans, man, it's just C.J. Stroud, unless he's playing against the Minnesota Vikings, who just tear up everybody. Like, this Texans offense is real deal, man. And you talk about, like, Nico Collins left what in the first quarter? A 67-yard post touchdown. Right? Like, how do teams keep leaving the post open? How do you play the Houston Texans and leave the post open? So it's just like good design by Slowick to get teams to bite on it. I know we just talked about the Ravens and then the Chiefs and stuff, but like, what AFC team has been more impressive this year other than the Texans?
Yeah, they've got a ton of talent on both sides of the ball, and obviously some of that is because their quarterback's a second-year quarterback, and you could afford to bring in Danielle Hunter for 2 years and $50 million. So I don't think there's a lot of teams that are more talented than this squad. I do think that they were gift-wrapped the field goal at the end. Granted, it was 59 yards because of an offensive penalty that pushed them back to midfield. But the Bills getting the ball with, I don't know, what was it?
32 seconds left.
Okay, 32 seconds left, deep in their own territory, and they just throw the ball downfield. I get it. The Texans had timeouts, but make them utilize it. Yeah. Try and maybe throw a screen. Why are we throwing all the way downfield or something? You gift wrap them an opportunity to win it with a lengthy field goal. And Sean McDermott, for the second straight week, said, yeah, we have to look at our play calling. The week before against the Ravens, they were moving down the field. They get that stupid trick play where Josh Allen got blown up. And here this week, they ran a massive 16 seconds off the clock when they were just trying to get to overtime. Yep, well, we'll go look at it. Well, Sean, stop saying every week in your post-game press conference, we'll look at it, and go frickin' look at it. Because now, I'm not going to say last week they were going to beat the Ravens. They weren't. But in this game, you get to overtime, who knows?
Yeah. And it's not sexy anymore to have a high average depth of target. And Josh Allen had a high average depth of target. And I just don't know if this Bills personnel, Keon Coleman, Kyle, I don't know if they're ready for it. Like, it feels like this is an offense that Khalil Shakir was out, and that huge piece of that offense being out. And clearly Curtis Samuel is not on the same wavelength as Khalil Shakir is with Josh Allen. Felt like a lot of those sideline passes that they're going for to maybe like some of those back shoulders, 50-50 balls on the sideline to Keon Coleman. It's not working. It's not happening right now. Obviously, he had one catch and it went for a touchdown. It was a huge play, but I don't know, man. There's not a lot of easy answers for this Bills offense the last 2 weeks, where it was their run game and they did have easy answers and things were clicking through the first 3 weeks of the season. And now the last 2 weeks, the easy answers have been gone. And Josh Allen's average depth of target was really high. And usually when you see an average depth of target being high, quarterback's trying to target downfield, throw it down the field, and there isn't those easy answers underneath that could help sustain drives and move things forward.
I think Josh Allen just needs to play better, though. Like,
he missed guys. He did miss guys flat out too.
He's. I
think it's a combo of
top QB.
They're not being easy answers, and Coleman not getting open on the sideline. They're a little sideline dependent and heavy right now. So, and Khalil Shakir being out is a bigger impact than maybe people seem to lead on.
Yeah, Shakir is definitely an impact, but like he missed guys that were open, right, wide open on key important moments, plays that could have added points, and he just missed. Like, I thought this was just a bad game for Josh Allen, and they've given up a little more pressure than they did the first few weeks. But this was again, like you mentioned it, they kind of threw the game away at the end while they were tied. Because Stroud had some big mistakes, and Josh Allen just flat out played bad, and it felt like they were trying to make it all back in one play.
And especially if you're not connecting on those as the game goes on, and there's 30 seconds left, and you're taking all those deep shots, and if you haven't connected on it for 3 quarters, odds are you just want to keep the game alive, right?
I'm placing a call to Las Vegas quickly as possible. I know the Bills cap-wise are not the best team when it comes to trading for Davante Adams, and I don't give a shit if he wants to go play with his old quarterback or his buddy from college. Go to Buffalo. Like, to me, that makes them a very interesting team all of a sudden. You get a true number one in there that can work with Josh Allen, that wants to win. I don't know. I mean, this team, I think they're fine. I think they're definitely the best team in the AFC East. But I would make them dogs when we get to the playoffs against a Houston, a Kansas City, a Baltimore. I think they're going to have to change personnel. I don't think this is as simple as, well, let's change a call or two and Josh Allen play better. I think they're a little short. That's
but we've had these moments with the Bills and I know they haven't beat the Chiefs ultimately. But like, think about the conversation about them mid-year last year, and then they came back and made themselves the number 1 seed in the AFC and lost to Mahomes and the Chiefs, no doubt. Now I think the Jets defense is actually a bad matchup from this next week, so they could be 3-3. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen Bills teams have figured it out for the most part. They just haven't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. If
you can go get a Devontae Adams, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, they're just like,
I just don't think that's...
I don't know if they can do it with their money situation.
You can always move
I don't think they're...
around.
They can. I mean, they can, but I'm saying, is it the smart thing for them to do right now?
Yeah, I don't think... I think they viewed drafting Keon Coleman in the first round, and didn't they... No, they traded back. Chiefs are the ones that traded up. They drafted Keon Coleman early, and that's their move as, we're going to develop this guy into a number 1. I don't know if they...
Good luck.
I agree with you, Chris, where it just... And I don't want to be too hard on Keon Coleman. Not everybody's Malik Neighbors and Jamar Chase, and they just burst on the scene, and they're just great automatically. Even though I didn't love Keon Coleman. They're kind of like an unexciting. But that's where they were picking in the draft. So,
they only have $10 million in cap space for next year right now.
Yeah, I kind of think they understand where they're at.
Rearranged.
It can, but that's kind of why they're in this issue.
Right.
Is rearranging for an older guy like Von Miller.
But ultimately, what it comes down to for the Buffalo Bills, and this is something where we talked about the first 3 weeks of the season, is, oh man, they're running the ball and James Cook and they're playing complementary football, and that's kind of the identity that they're going to have to lean on when you're down 14-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then you're down 17-3 at halftime. Honestly, I feel like a lot of their third quarter comeback where they scored 14 points, James Cook, I think, had some big runs in the third quarter. But still, you're kind of abandoning the run. When you're down by 2 scores in the second half, you're not running the ball. So this is a team where the opening script, along a lot of every NFL team, but particularly for the Buffalo Bills, the opening script is just so important for them, because I don't know if they're a football team, even though they have Josh Allen, they're not really a football team that's built to come from behind. And that's a weird sentence to say, but they almost did it. They almost did it against the Houston Texans, despite Josh Allen only completing 9 passes. But they got to get leads, and they gotta sustain them, and they got to run the rock. And they weren't fully able to do that. They did run it for 5.5.
They ran it for 5.5 yards to carry, and they ran for 150 yards.
But it's the game script. That's my point. It's the game script of getting behind early that
game script
kind of
gets blown out after 15 plays. That stuff after 1 or 2 drives. See ya. Well, let's see where we are in the game. And
right,
they should call the Browns, not the Raiders. That's a contract they can pick up as Cooper.
Yeah, honestly,
we all know Adams is going to the Jets anyways.
Yeah. So let's get to them. The New York Jets fall sub 500. They are 2-3 after losing over in London. First of 4 straight weeks of international games, or maybe 4 and 5 weeks, whatever the math works out to be. 23-17. The Minnesota Vikings are now 5-0 for the first time since 2016. It was all in part because of their defense. The offense was just not very good for the Minnesota Vikings. The big news in this one, Aaron Rodgers had a chance to lead a victory drive and ends up getting picked off by Stephon Gilmore. It's the 3rd time he got picked off in the game. Garrett Wilson, earlier on that drive, double move, beat Gilmore. Rodgers overshot it. Guess what, Aaron Rodgers? Guess what, New York Jets? You got exactly what you asked for. Congratulations. Robert Saleh can coach defense. Aaron Rodgers wanted Nathaniel Hackett to stick around, hung his hat on him as an offensive coordinator. The offense stinks. They can't outrun the ball. Aaron Rodgers looked average at best at times and subpar at worst. He turned it over 3 times. I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for the Jets fans, because desperate organizations, much like my Cleveland Browns, turn over too much power to the quarterback when they are needy at that position and haven't been good at that position in decades. So you asked Aaron Rodgers to go play GM. Unlike LeBron, this is a sport where you can't add one or two guys that you think are your buddies and will help you out and will actually work, because it's not working. And so this team might end up getting 9 or 10 wins, and they'll get bounced in the first round of the playoffs if they're fortunate enough to make it. That's what I saw yesterday, and I'm sticking to it.
I've always compared the two, and I've been laughed at before.
Well, yeah, LeBron's won 5 titles before.
Four. Should have been 5.
Half this offense feels like back
Anyways.
shoulder fades, Bobby. Half this offense feels like wide receivers need to turn around on back shoulder fades.
So there was so many positive things going for the Jets, but there was like 3 big buts, right? It was keeping Hackett, signing Mike Williams instead of going somewhere else to figure out wide receiver 2, which I think that because they're Garrett Wilson or bust off. I don't care how many yards Lazard has or touchdowns. He fucking sucks. And he honestly screwed part of that game. You know, Aaron Rodgers throws a beautiful ball. What was it, 3rd or 4th down into the game? Beautiful ball into the end zone. Perfect. Lazard doesn't catch it. The offensive line hasn't. I don't think it's been as bad as probably Jets fans make it out to be, but it hasn't been overly good.
The guards got cooked. John Simpson got cooked on a sack by Phillips, and Elijah Vera Tucker.
But there's just,
God bless his ankles. Ivan Pace Jr. got him.
You know, Garrett Wilson had 22 targets, which I think is like the 5th most since like 2000. Like, they're a Garrett Wilson or bust offense. The run game's awful. Like, I know we'll look at that and be like, oh man, Aaron Rodgers, 3 interceptions, shitty. Like, I actually thought he was the least of the worries on that offense. I know he had some bad moments in that game, but they were just so over reliant on him, and then he got banged up, and then comes right back in. And like, Saleh, why not keep Rodgers out for a play? Like, yeah, I think they're...
Well, hold on. I know exactly why. Because Aaron told him, I'm good. Did you see he was going to go into the blue tent?
And
then they get a roughing. Minnesota rough the punter, so they get an automatic first down. Guess who grabbed his helmet? And how do you think that would have gone if Robert Saleh turned to Aaron Rodgers and said, you know what, sit this one out? How do you think that would have gone? Pretty well?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That's why, dude, they are in this position because they gave Aaron Rodgers all the power. You can dictate the personnel. You can dictate the shitty offensive coordinator. You can dictate whatever you want, man. But the problem is that this is not 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers. This is 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, where there are memes of him crawling around like he lost his contact lens on the side of the field. Like, this is where he is, guys. And this is where the Jets are.
He can't move as well as he used to. He was on a couple years ago. If you were to tell me 3 or 4 years ago that you would put Aaron Rodgers on a quarterback that you can blitz list, I would say, well, you're crazy. But I mean, the last 2 weeks. Now, granted, you're facing 2 defenses that do a very good job of getting after the quarterback and that have high blitz rates. 45.4% blitz rate the last 2 weeks. 1 interception, no touchdown, 7 sacks. With the 57.2 passer rating versus the first 3 weeks of the season. Teams didn't really blitz them, and Rodgers was good against the blitz versus some of these cover 0 looks that the Broncos and the Vikings have shown. Aaron Rodgers has got hit, and I think you're seeing a 40-year-old quarterback that cannot move as well as he used to. Don't get me wrong, he could still sling it, but hitting him and getting him down, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get hurt. I think he's close to being maybe out for a couple weeks.
Well, here's what the opposite side of that, though, is that they're going to trade for Devontae Adams, and now that gives them a fucking hell of a wide receiver duo. And we just talked about, like, the Vikings have made everyone look like dog shit. They've made everyone look horrible. And the Broncos defense is looking pretty damn good, right? We talk about the Broncos offense being horrible. They're 3-2 right now.
Yeah.
They're fucking 3-2.
With a terrible offense.
Yeah, with a terrible, terrible offense, even though I think Bo Nix had his best game yesterday. So maybe they don't have the Super Bowl aspirations, but I don't think the Jets are as bad as their record indicates. I think they're
going to get a lot of wins because, I mean, they play the Patriots twice. They play the Dolphins. I don't know if Tua's coming back. So if they don't have to face a Tua Dolphins squad, they probably win both those games. I think they're going to win 10 games. I'm not impressed by them. And oh, by the way, you know that I've said this every show, how much, like, Kevin O'Connell's my man crush in the coaching world. He let the Jets get back in this game. It was 17-0 before halftime, and he moved down the field with Sam Darnold when Sam Darnold wasn't playing a good game, okay? There's nothing wrong with being up by 2 scores at halftime. Instead, what he does is they punt the ball back to the Jets, crappy punt, Jets return it to the 36-yard line, and they get a late touchdown right before the half, and they make it a game instead of it being 17-0. I really think that this would have been a blowout if Kevin O'Connell hadn't out-cuted himself. That's what I think.
Here's the thing, though. Like, the Jets' defense is really, like, they were, and honestly, all the Vikings points came off ticky-tack calls on the Jets secondary. I know people don't like Sauce and think he's a little too grabby, but like those were nitpick calls.
DJ Reed played an incredible game too.
So that
when
defense
Sauce was out.
is still really good, right? Like they're the only defense to make the Vikings offense look bad. And I think when they have Devontae Adams and they're not playing the Vikings defense that has tormented everybody. They've tormented CJ Stroud. They've tormented the 49ers. They've tormented everybody. Again, not my Super Bowl pick, but I think, like you, they're going to win games, but I'm not overreacting to these last 2 weeks is basically what I'm saying.
But when do we stop making excuses for them? Well, they played a good defense. Well, they did this. Well, the Broncos are 3-2. Like, at what point do we just say the Jets are okay? They're okay. And this year, based on their schedule,
what they've had in the last 15 years is okay.
Okay, great. Yeah. So is the Jets fan base going to be happy going 10-7 and losing in the first round of the playoffs, and you really don't know what you're doing at quarterback next year? Like, is that going to be good? Because if so, then good for you.
I think some of them may be happy with that, and a lot of them will be mad with that.
They're obviously in a win or bust season. But what I'm saying is, because winning the Super Bowl is hard, you got to beat fucking Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and CJ. Like, is that I think if they get Devontae Adams, they're going to have a shot at it. I think they're going to have a shot. I don't think they're going to win it. I think those other teams are better, but I think they're going to have a shot at it when they have Aaron Rodgers, Wilson, Adams, and then that defense.
Okay, we'll see. I'm excited to see how that one plays out.
Well, right now, I think people view them as just no shot. Like 2-3, they got no shot at it.
Right. That's what I would say at this point. Until the trade is made, and I want to see what that trade looks like.
Okay. Make the trade. I agree. Without the trade, no shot.
Sunday Night Football, we had to wait an extra 90 minutes because of a nasty storm that blew through the Steel City. Cowboys end up getting a last-minute touchdown on a fourth down pass from Dak Prescott to Jalen Tolbert, who the play before, he didn't have his bell rung, he had his balls rung. It looked like a pass skipped right into the groinage area, and he had to collect himself during a timeout before making the eventual game-winning grab there. I was wondering going into this game, how the heck are the Cowboys going to score points against this elite Steelers defense when they can't run the ball, when they don't have a receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb, and their offensive line might get manhandled by that Steelers front? To their credit, in the fourth quarter, they put a 16-play, 8.5-minute touchdown drive together, and then to win it, a 15-play, 70-yard, 4.5-minute drive. Say whatever you want about the Dallas Cowboys, and they're not that impressive. I thought that, Justin, was kind of impressive.
No, it is. And
they have a good QB.
Yeah, Dak Prescott's good, man. Dak Prescott's so good. There's 4 guys that had over 50 receiving yards. The Rico Dowdle had that touchdown grab. Like, who would have thought that a running back would be coming out of the backfield catching a touchdown in a crunch time? Dak is good, but I honestly think the main story of this is I could imagine the Dallas Cowboys. You know what? Even with this isn't a great Dallas Cowboy offense. If you were to tell me that they're going to put up 20 points, I'd be like, you know what? I'm not shocked. But you want to know what the Steelers needed to do against a bad? I think this Cowboy defense is not good, especially when Micah Parsons is out. So many guys are out for this team. The interior is such a question. They've been run on all year outside of the Giants game. The Steelers, if the Dallas Cowboys were going to put up 20 points, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that even with the compromised offense, the Steelers needed to put up 23, 21, 24, and they didn't. And I am not shocked at all. Not shocked that on national television, the Pittsburgh Steelers have this opportunity to stamp themselves as, man, we're a 4-1 football team, and we're here, man. We're here. We're going to play a complete football game on national television. The Cowboys, the rivalry game, and all the story that's built into that. We're here. And they really, I think, disappointed and fell flat. Dak Prescott being good, asking him to throw the ball 42 times and throw 2 touchdown passes. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me that Dak Prescott's able to pull that out. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to be disappointed if you're a Steelers fan that offense could not score more than 17 points against a very compromised Dallas Cowboy team.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers' offense is just pathetic, and their defense put them in good spots. You know, like the defense is really good, right? But the
Steelers did what they did. Where didn't they force a turnover in the fourth quarter and they had something special teams?
Yeah, Joey Porter intercept. Now, granted, the Steelers did finish with a touchdown on that drive.
But it was like the perfect Steelers game where it's like, oh, this is just how these Steelers games go. Not only if you check the bingo card, not only did they get the special teams play, they also got the defensive turnover. It's like, oh, this is how they win.
Yeah, they're the 26th ranked offense and the 2nd ranked defense, and that's what they look like every single week. Every single week, they look like a bad offense and a really good defense. This is an issue. It seems like I'd like to hear your opinion on this because we've talked about this a lot last year and into the offseason. Your opinion on what's the deals with George Pickens, because they limited his snaps. There was plays of him not even running routes. You know, he grabs the guy's face mask at the end. He's like, this is the issue with Pickens because he's talented as fuck, right? And he's kind of their only offense for the most part is George Pickens, but he's not engaged half the time. He doesn't run. Like, this is why Kenny Pickett was bad, but this is why the Kenny Pickett stuff got so ugly at the end last year. It wasn't just simply because Pickett wasn't good and he there was no accountability for George Pickens and running the wrong routes half the time.
And do you want to hear?
It would drive. I have a Kenny Pickett like source who's like, it drove him nuts because Pickens would just not run the right routes, and so Tomlin but they never held them accountable for it. So Tomlin's starting to make him hold him accountable by taking snaps away from him.
But do you want to hear Tomlin's reason for that?
It's bullshit.
Yeah, and Rose,
he's coach speaking.
We'll let you respond. Where it's like cut his reps to increase higher quality of play. That's the reason. It's like, come on, man. We know you're lying. We know that's.
I don't
not
mind
the truth.
him lying to cover his guy, but that's an issue. So they're just a bad offense. They can't really separate much. They can't block. They can't run the ball. Right. That's their biggest issue. Is they should be a team that can run the ball well, and they're not good. And yeah, the Cowboys had. This was a classic case of two flawed teams with some talent. The better quarterback won, despite the fact that the better quarterback didn't have, had bad moments. He was the better quarterback, and that's why the Cowboys won the game.
So a few things. First of all, the fact that you have a Kenny Pickett source is amazing.
He's giving me some good info, by the way.
I love that. I can't believe you've been sitting on that for all this time. I'm a little hurt, to be honest with you, Bobby.
Sometimes I just like to hint at it. I had the Jalen Hyatt trade thing before anyone from the Kenny Pickett.
Nice. Anyways. Okay. The other part is, y'all act surprised about George Pickens.
Oh, no, I'm not surprised.
By the way, this has been going on in Pittsburgh for 15 years. Just change the name of the guy. Now, they put up with it because Antonio Brown was so
He's not
filthy
talented,
on the
as
field.
talented as those guys either.
No. Well, he's more talented than Juju Smith-Schuster. He's more talented than Chase Claypool. He's more talented than Deontay Johnson. He is super. The only guy I would say that he's not as talented is Antonio Brown, who is one of the best route runners and hands guys we've ever
I'd take
seen.
Johnson over him, but yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. George Pickens is a beast. His problem is exactly what we knew when he came out of Georgia, and that is between the ears. Well, it's a lot more than that. And who knows if he's what's going on behind closed doors? Is he showing up to meetings? Is he late? We don't know any of that stuff. But this is the stuff, talent always wins. But man, if you're going to play half-assed for 40 snaps a game, I think this is a short marriage. I'll be honest with you. I don't see him getting a 7 or 8 year run there because he's so talented. I think it's a short run.
No, it'll be interesting to see what teams are even interested. But again, I picked the Steelers to win because I thought that they could get 23 points. Just exactly what Justin said. I thought the Cowboys would put 17 to 20 points on the board, but I thought this Cowboys defense was bad enough for the Steelers to put up 23, and they weren't able to do that. Their run game's awful. Harris is not good. The offensive line is young. They're a mess offensively, and once again the Steelers are wasting a good defense.
All right, let's move out to the West Coast. NFC West battle. Arizona Cardinals top the San Francisco 49ers 24-23. They get a last-minute field goal. And then the Niners, who were without their field goal kicker in Jake Moody because he tried to make a tackle and it ended up getting a high ankle sprain, they had to try and move the ball downfield for a possible touchdown, even when they were down 1 with a minute to go, and Brock Purdy got picked off. Second half, this Arizona Cardinals defense that has been so maligned through the first month of the season came up big time. They did not allow any points. They forced 3 turnovers, and they get out of there with a win. So San Francisco falls to 2-3. How worried should Niners fans be, Bobby?
So I'm not overly worried about the 49ers.
I'm not either.
Their defense. Their offense, I'm actually not worried about at all. Purdy did have a bad game. He missed Jennings up the sideline on a play, a 3rd and goal. He should have thrown the ball to him. So, but like both interceptions, one tipped up, the other one while it's hit, probably should have thrown the ball. So it wasn't a good game by Purdy, but Purdy's actually been playing really well this year.
Yeah.
Without, the easy, all the easy buttons that come in a Kyle Shanahan offense with that talent. But here's the thing. They had to go for it on a 4th and 23 because their kicker was injured. And then their kicker missed a kick versus the Rams that would have ended the game. So they're a functional kicker away from 4-1, but the defense on the flip side can't hold a lead. And the Cardinals just got James Conner fucking bitched them out in those last 2 drives. 2 12-play, 70-plus yard drives. There wasn't anything special on that. It was James Conner getting 12 carries for 73 yards, right? And just beating up guys, right? And they go for the 2-point conversion that set up the win. They hit him in the backfield. James Conner fucking doesn't move an inch and gets the 2-point conversion. And then Harrison Moss is a guy on 4th and 5. They need guys on that defense to step up, and it's really only Fred Warner and Nick Bosa that are. They need the other 9 guys on that defense to step up because they're not doing it right now.
Yeah, 2022, where Bosa had his Defensive Player of the Year campaign. It wasn't just Bosa that had the incredible year. It was those were dogs, man. They were going after the quarterback. I watched every snap of that year, and I'm like, oh, well, you want to know why Bosa's really good? It's because all these other guys around him are really good too. On the interior, on the edge, they're running stunts together, and it just doesn't seem to be the case, man. Kevin Givens, Nick Bosa, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, those are the guys that have 3 or more sacks on the team right now. I don't know. I don't know if I get dog out of those guys outside of Nick Bosa. Leonard Floyd.
They lost Hargrave too, which I think is a big loss.
Yeah,
for them.
It's a huge loss. So
they're missing what's the linebacker's name that got hurt in the Super Bowl?
Dre Greenlaw.
They're missing Dre Greenlaw. Their corners are not stepping up the way they should. I am worried about the defense, but I'm still just as confident in them to win their division as I am almost any other team.
Yeah, this was a game where they had to finish inside the red zone, and they just didn't, Chris. Mm-hmm. They settled on way too many field goals. You mentioned the turnovers. Not having a kicker kind of helped you, but even before that, you have an opportunity to go up by multiple scores, and kicking field goals, and the Cardinals were kicking a lot of field goals too throughout this game too, where they could have gotten a lead a little bit earlier. So, seeing the mistakes, seeing that you didn't have the kicker, seeing that you're having these big plays, and I thought Ayuk looked better. So Debo had some big plays. So the weapons are starting to get more fully involved again. Kicking these field goals, I know the 49ers are going to be able to finish a lot on these drives, and a lot of these other games that they play, they're going to be able to finish inside the red zone.
Yeah, Purdy played a bad game, and he's played great. This year is impressive. If you're doubting if he's a good QB still, I think you're out of your mind. But he did play a bad game. But the defense is what worries me long term with them.
Yeah, it was the first time that he was shut out, and we're talking about Brock Purdy in the second half of one of his starts. One last thing I would say about the defense for the Niners. We often talk about offensive coordinators and continuity and how important that is. On the defensive side of the football, over the last 6 years, they've gone through Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryans. They got rid of Steve Wilkes after a year. Now they brought in Nick Sorensen, who was with the team, but he had never called defense before. Just at some point, it might not work out great. We just assume that, because they've got really good players, that it's always going to work. Sometimes you miss on dudes. and we'll see whether or not they can get their shit together. The good news for the Niners, I would say, is that the last time that they were 2-3 was 2021. They made it all the way to the NFC title game. So this is an organization which, even when it doesn't feel great, it might end up being okay.
Isn't it similar to the Chiefs? Now, obviously, the Chiefs are undefeated, but isn't it similar to the Chiefs where you feel like they're playing for January and February?
Yeah, except the only difference I would say is that the McCaffrey injury really scares me.
Yeah,
they are a
that's
totally
huge.
Different team when he's out there. I know that Jordan Mason has done a great job, except for that red zone fumble that he had on Sunday, which was really bad. But when McCaffrey's out there, because of his ability to run inside, outside, split out, catch the pass like a receiver, they really miss him. And if he's not going to come back at all, then forget it. If he comes back for the back half of the year, then I'm interested.
We've done. I think we've done our Big Five, right?
We have.
So let's talk about that, because you have the NFC East that has Eagles, Cowboys. The NFC North. Is it like? Are we just like kind of like feeling confident that the Super Bowl contender from the NFC is coming out of the North?
Can I tease that conversation because I want to talk to you about something?
Please. Talk to me
about something. I'm going to tease you, and I'm going to talk about the DraftKings Sportsbook. Oh, this is a good conversation. There's a chill in the air. Leaves are falling to the ground, and I think that I don't know how this works now that there's an odd number of games, because are we a quarter of the way through the year? Are we officially done there? Because usually it's 4 weeks. Leaves are falling to the ground, and there's football on every single weekend. That's what fall is all about. You can make each weekend even more exciting by getting into the action with our partners at DraftKings, the number one place to bet on touchdowns, TDs, tutties, whatever you want to call it. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5, you're instantly going to get $200 back in bonus bets when you use code football today. That's all one word. That's $200 in bonus bets instantly. What are you waiting for? Don't wait. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use promo code football today. Bet just $5 on any wager. You get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code football today. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did. So, Bobby, go ahead. Make your point.
Like, how confident are you that the NFC representative comes out of the North?
I'm not 100% there. I mean, I don't consider Minnesota a Super Bowl contender. I think they played exceptionally well for 5 weeks. Last time they started 5-0, they finished 500. By the way, that wouldn't surprise me if they finished 9-8. Green Bay has got to show me a little bit more, even though they were my Super Bowl winner preseason. Detroit has played the best of the bunch, and I think that Chicago is really making strides. And we'll talk about Caleb Williams momentarily. I think they're a fringe playoff team. So I would rank them in order. I would say Detroit, far and away, has the best shot. I would put Green Bay, not going to say far and away. I would put Green Bay next, and then I would put two teams that have zero shot.
Yeah, I just feel like those now here's the Packers have, I think, a lot of questions, and Love hasn't played particularly great, and they're still 3-2, right? They won 2 games with Malik Willis, so like even though I don't feel great about them right now, that makes me feel better, because think about the way that last year went. The Vikings, man, I do think that defense gives them a chance, and then you have a ton of offensive talent. I know Darnold had a bad game yesterday, but I think the Vikings have a shot, and then the Lions are my favorite right now. Whereas just I feel like they have 3 teams that I think have a shot at it, where the rest of the NFC, I think the Eagles and Cowboys are just as flawed as anybody. I think the 49ers, that defense, I think is worrisome to get through an entire playoff run. And then in the South, I'm not picking any of those teams.
Yeah, the one team I was disappointed in yesterday is a team that you guys beat in the Seahawks, but we'll talk about them in just a second. I still think that they can bounce back. I think there's a lot of talent. I think they've got some injury issues that are not long-term where they could get healthy and be a real problem. Let's continue on with the team that's actually leading the NFC East. That's the Washington Commanders, 34-13 over the hapless Cleveland Browns. Jaden Daniels wasn't his best game that we've seen so far, but he threw for 238. He ran for a team high 82 more yards. This team just doesn't get stopped on offense. The defense the last 2 weeks against Arizona and Cleveland has been significantly better. They are a fun watch, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, next week they take on the Baltimore Ravens, so I don't know if it's Lamar and Lamar light, but man, oh man, it's going to be a blast. This kid just continues to do things at a very, very high level through 5 games.
Yeah, and this was his worst passing game, I thought. And But like the things that he does do make like the legs make up for it, right?
Yeah.
When it's 3rd down and long, his legs give you first downs. And the thing that I thought he did the best was throw deep to the sidelines, right? And that was, that's the difference of winning and losing. I know he had the interception, but like completing that 66-yard pass to Terry McLaurin, pretty, right? Hitting De'Ami Brown for a 41-yard touchdown, right? So using his legs and then that going, I mean, their rushing game is just flat out good.
It's crazy.
And then you add his rushing legs to it. Like they're probably the number 1 running team in the NFL
they
right
are.
now.
By far, it's not even close.
That like the Browns defense is very talented and they've underperformed, I think partly due to their offense. But like this is what we said about the Commanders coming in is like, do we expect them to beat a team like the Browns? And I think we all said kind of yes, because the Browns offense is so bad and we expect the Commanders offense to do enough. And that's what they did.
Can we get to the elephant in the room, which is that Kevin Stefanski says that Deshaun Watson, and he doubled down on Monday's press conference saying that he is our quarterback. He did, however, say that he might move off of play calling duties and give those over to Ken Dorsey, who came in the offseason to kind of install a fresh offensive look, which has been horrible. The Browns are the only team that hasn't had a 300-yard total offense day. They're the only team that has not scored 20 points in a single game this season. Yes, the Patriots and Dolphins have done it. I've checked.
Rose, when does it get to a point where it's not fair to the other 52 guys on the active roster that you're running?
I think they passed that.
Yeah.
I think they've passed that. And I have to be honest here. I'm not talking to people in the organization in part because I'm so frustrated as a fan that I don't think I want to know what is going on behind closed doors. I don't know. All right. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. He's a part of the problem. He's a major part of the problem. And I don't know how you can justify not at least giving Jameis a shot. Do I think that Jameis becomes Joe Flacco? No. Do I think that it's at least a watchable offense? Possibly. But I think they have done everything in their power to make Deshaun Watson comfortable. We talked about Aaron Rodgers. You give him all the power, and then sometimes it's going to blow up in your face. Well, the Browns had an offense that was humming last year with Joe Flacco at the helm. They decided not to offer him a contract. They changed their offense to make it more suitable for Deshaun Watson, and it is not working out. At some point, they might have to be honest with themselves here. And I don't know if that's coming anytime soon.
What? I just don't know what they do. Because now you're going to have a guy sitting on the bench for 2 years, taking up $72 million cap hits.
I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to draft a quarterback in the first round this year because you're going to be in that kind of position.
They have to. They have to draft a quarterback. Don't you think?
If they're in position to do so and they like the guy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fast forward to the 2025 draft.
Cam Ward.
But they're screwed. Like there's no other way around it. They are screwed. There's no like, but if this happens, they are screwed for the next 3 years. Like we'll see you in 2027.
Last year was such a feel-good season, too, because they did it with all these guys injured, and they bring a guy off the couch, and all of a sudden they're lovable and fun. And now it's gotten back to this.
You can't expect the defense to do that, to do what they did last year a second year in a row.
Yeah.
You got to get more help on the offense, and they're one of the worst offenses of the millennium.
Can I make you guys happy?
Yes, please.
Giants 29.
Here we go.
Seahawks 20. I could not believe that when you didn't have Malik Neighbors nor Devin Singletary, your two best offensive playmakers, not there, went into a hostile environment all the way across the country. You didn't just win, you kicked their ass.
Yeah.
You really
score
did.
isn't indicative of how that game went.
And I know that people who really want to do a deep dive will listen to Talking Giants than they should. But I do want to give you guys your flowers. And I know that Daniel Jones is a product of a very, very good offensive mindset in Brian Daboll. But I do want to say this, that Daniel Jones has 3 games this year, multiple touchdown passes, and no interceptions. I didn't think he could get there. But for 3 times in 5 games this year, for him to do that, and I'm not saying that means he's a quarterback there. I'm not even saying he's a starting quarterback in the league. I'm just happy for him because I think he's taken a lot of shit. And I thought this was a great win for you guys.
Well, I'm happy for him too, because after week 1, it felt like it was going to, that awful game there was serious talk about like he might be benched, right? And that was for Drew. Like I was, we have to cover this team. Like our kind of life depends on the New York Giants, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to be in a world where I have Drew Lock as my starting quarterback. Like, can Daniel Jones get back to the level of play that he was? Not to be the franchise quarterback for the next 5 years, but just to get through this year at least. And he's done that. Right now, this was the first game where he hit the deep shots, where he was really bad at that, even in some of their good offensive moments without Neighbors. Slate and Wright, I think he's one of the more underrated players around the league and within the Giants fan base.
Tyron Tracy has a good game.
But here's the real storyline: the Giants have a good offensive line for the first time since
Eli was winning Super Bowls.
The O'Hara, McKenzie, Sneeze, Soyber, Deal Gaze. Like they're legitimately good. They've accredited for 3 sacks. Like it's not just like, oh man, it's good for the Giants. We go an entire game and not being like, oh, bad play by the offensive line.
They're not even a thought.
Yeah, so like the offensive line's real deal. Daniel Jones, played his best game of the year by far against the Seahawks team that I thought the Seahawks team, this was going to be the Giants' worst game outside of the Vikings because of how good I thought that they were. Good on them. Their offensive line is real deal. And credit to Justin. He said that the Dexter Lawrence sacks were coming. He's got 6 in 5 games.
There's 3 players in the NFL with 6 sacks right now. Aiden Hutchinson with 6.5, who was on a bye week. Will McDonald and Dexter Lawrence.
And last time I checked, those 2 other guys did not play inside. I do think you're the beneficiary of a tough Seahawks schedule, meaning short week against a really physical Detroit team, but you shouldn't apologize for that. Whatever it says on the schedule, you play.
Yep.
But I did think that Seattle kind of sleptwalked through that first half. Like they weren't getting anything, and they've been a really fun offense to watch. They just, I don't know, whatever. But if it's not for that 102-yard fumble return touchdown, I think Seattle gets a crap kicked out of them.
Oh, it would have been 30-6 in the fourth quarter if that happened. So let me ask you this, because I don't want to talk just from the Giants' point of view, from the Seahawks' point of view. What do you think about Geno scrambling on a 3rd and long and sliding 1 yard short of the 4th down of the first down, and then they go for it on 4th down and don't get it?
Well, it was
down in the 4th quarter.
I know. I didn't have a problem with him. I really don't have a problem for the most part with guys going for it on 4th down.
No, not going for it, but Geno would have had the first down if he would have just tried to get it, and he slid short of it.
I can't answer that question because I don't know what's going through his head. I don't think he was like, I'm going to slide a yard short. I think he probably lost track of where he was, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, he was their leading rusher by more than 50 yards.
Yeah. So it was actually a great game plan from the Giants because, we do our preview pods and we go pretty in depth. And I'm like, just keep him inside the pocket. Like, when you get pressure, don't allow him to escape outside of the pocket. And because that's when he makes some really nice plays with his arms, and he's never really been much of a threat to run. And the Giants did exactly that, but that allowed Geno to, have 4 giant runs that he had.
How about the play by Isaiah Simmons? It looked like I've done a little internet sleuthing, and it does seem that somebody, I don't know if it was Dexter Lawrence or somebody, might have pushed the center down, but whatever. You don't get called for it, you don't get called for it. But the fact that trying. Right, that Simmons jumped over the line and blocked that now. And blocked the kick. That was phenomenal. And I love the story about the kid who returned the kick. He's a wide receiver, and he had never touched the ball in an NFL game until yesterday on the return.
Bryce Ford Wheaton, he's a big fan of us. So congrats to Bryce Ford Wheaton.
That was pretty awesome. I'm just happy for you guys. You deserved it. It's a great win. Both teams need to rebound quickly because they've got primetime affairs. Seattle will host San Francisco on Thursday Night Football. The Giants hosting the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. I get to talk about you guys after the game. I cannot wait. Bears 36, Panthers 10. Caleb Williams, his second 300-yard passing game in the last 3. This one, he looked great against the team that is the reason why Williams is in Chicago. Also the reason that DJ Moore is in Chicago. Oh, he had 5 for 105 and 2 scores. Also the reason that Tyreek Stevenson, who had a couple of big plays, is in Chicago. I could go on and on. Did you guys see that sign from that Bears fan?
Yeah.
Like Panthers got Bryce Young. That was mean.
Oh, you know what was even more mean was the Panthers throwing Bryce Young in the end of the game. Like, here you go.
Well, I like that. I actually like that. I did. You have to get him sometime.
Not against the Bears.
Not in this game, Rose.
Don't do it against
Why?
the Bears.
Because of the narratives and come on, man.
It just felt mean.
Yeah, it did feel a little mean.
But the Panthers' defense is awful, right? We talk about it. It's the only worst defense than the Bengals.
Yep.
So, like, again, you don't take victory laps against the worst defense in the NFL.
But Caleb Williams passed the test.
Yeah, I was worried because this Bears offense has looked so sloppy and bad sometimes that they would look sloppy and bad against a bad defense. So they didn't. Caleb connected with DJ Moore for the 2 touchdowns, so it was nice to see them get a little bit of their connection. Running game, I still think is an issue, but Caleb made some like wow plays in the pocket and running the ball too. So good game for them. And this is kind of why we were a little excited about the Bears, is that the fact that they haven't looked that great. They still came out of the first 5 weeks of the season 3-2.
Yeah, and now they're off to London to take on the 1-win Jacksonville Jaguars. I actually think that's going to be a very tough game for Chicago.
Jags at home. It's hard to beat them.
Yes, it is. It's their true home. Let's be honest.
Yes, it is.
So you could see the improvement in Caleb Williams. Like, we even did a statistical breakdown last night, game day final. His first 10 quarters as opposed to his last 10 quarters. Astronomical statistical difference, but you can just see it in the way that he's playing. He's playing quarterback a lot more, and I think that that's all that should matter for Bears fans. If you make a run toward the playoffs, great. The important thing is that he starts to look quarterback-ish by week 18.
And the magic stuff is going to come.
And get a little more, like, the deep accuracy was, like, really worrisome.
Right.
Hit some of those. And like you said, they're putting a lot on his plate, right? They're not putting him in this, like, bullshit, like, let's have a great statistical rookie year type of offense type of thing. Like, there was even that clip, I don't know if you saw, where he, like, tags a run play because he knows he's throwing the free release out on the backside, and the center's like, that's fucking fire, like the blitz that they were coming against.
Yeah,
and he's like, I know, set, hut, and then throws the ball, for a quick out. So it was good to see them have that game against a bad Panthers team. Bad Panthers defense, at least.
Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff for Caleb Williams. It'll be fun to see him over in London this coming week. Early call time, by the way. Let's move on to these games. We'll finish them up quickly. Denver's won 3 in a row. 34-18 over the Raiders is the final. Bo Nix, couple of passing touchdowns, another rushing touchdown for him. The Raiders don't know what they're doing at quarterback. Gardner Minshew got pulled for Aiden O'Connell. Neither of them played well. Antonio Pierce said afterward, I got to look at the tape. I'm not definitely saying that one guy's starting over the other. Devontae Adams, no go because of a hamstring issue. By the way, he got paid $970,000 to not play football on Sunday. So let's see here. When does he get traded? Tuesday? Wednesday?
Hopefully, and I hope it's the Jets too.
The Jaguars play the Bears on Sunday at 6.
Oh, Siri.
Shut the fuck up, Siri.
Wow. I didn't even talk about the Bears Jags right there, but she was all over me.
She's late.
Yeah, she's a couple minutes behind.
Did you guys like the Bo Nix, Sean Payton sideline fireworks?
Do you know exactly what that was about?
They wouldn't tell us exactly what it was about, but Payton said after the game, I got to knock a little bit of the Ferris Bueller out of him. I don't know if that means smugness or what. He goes, I love Bo Nix and what he's all about, and I'm okay with guys going back and forth. And you've heard a bunch of like former Sean Payton guys say, like he digs it if you go back at him. Like that's what he's testing you. Remember, he's a former Bill Parcells disciple.
Yeah.
And go look at the 1980s video of Bill Parcells and his Super Bowl winning quarterback Phil Simms. They would scream at the top of their lungs at each other almost weekly on the sidelines.
Do you think we'll ever have a meaner coach than Bill Like maybe Brian Flores with the Dolphins tested that a little bit.
Yeah.
But Parcells was, remember just Terry Glenn? He just like press conferences called him she. Like he was the meanest coach I've ever seen, yet my hero.
Rest in peace, Terry Glenn. Oh God. Let's move on. Packers 24, Rams 19. Jordan Love gets his first win of the year. He threw for 224 and a couple of touchdowns. Both of them to Tucker Kraft, who, that was impressive for a tight end to run 66 yards down the sideline with a couple of stiff arms on the way. I thought that was the best play of the game. That was fun.
Yeah, he went to South Dakota State. Funny story. I didn't watch much of this game. I saw a little bit of the highlights. McKinney, man, 5 interceptions in 5 games is nuts. That
Pretty
Jaden
good.
Reed play, that Jaden Reed 50-yard
Yes.
catch. Do you like that? Because that was like a incredibly dumb throw, but they pulled it off.
Yeah, it's one of those where he out athletic three guys in the secondary. It was a very odd play. I didn't love it. I thought the Packers actually got away with one here. The difference is the Packers playmakers, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, they actually made plays for Jordan Love, whereas Matthew Stafford, without his top two weapons, I'll throw it 7 times to Whittington and 7 more times to Parkinson. That's not a recipe for winning.
Hey, the Rams have a leading receiver out of the 4th round again. They've got that going for them.
Okay,
Is it
that's
is
good.
it Tutu Atwell?
Jordan Whittington, their rookie.
It is Whittington.
So hopefully the Rams get healthier on the bye, and then they'll take on the Las Vegas Raiders, and who knows what they're going to look like in Week 7. Jacksonville. Yay! Everybody's got to win this year. The Jags take care of business against Indianapolis at home yet again. It's been a decade since the Colts have won down in Jacksonville. 37-34 your final. Cam Little with a field goal for the Jags pretty much as time expires. Career day for Trevor Lawrence. Career high 371 yards and a couple of scores on his 25th birthday. Joe Flacco threw for 359 and 3 touchdowns. However, Shane Steichen came out on Monday and said, Anthony Richardson, when healthy, is our starting quarterback. Is that the right call, Penik?
So, yeah. You got to. Yeah, you got to see what you got in Anthony Richardson. I think there's differing opinions on whether game reps are good for him or not. I think he's got to get out there. I think he's got to play. Got to prove that you could stay healthy as well. It's not just about, all right, you could be on the bench and you can learn better and, you can get the mental reps that you need. But you got your mental reps last year. That's what last year was about. You got to go out here. You got to go out there and you got to prove it. And this franchise needs to figure out what they have in you and also how they need to build around you and what kind of quarterback you are. So, yeah, Colts aren't in a great spot, and I think they should have been in a. I mean, they're 2-3. They should be in a better spot after 5 weeks, but alas, here we are.
Let me ask you this. Aditi Kinkabwala, who was working the game on the sidelines for CBS, reported that the Colts were the only team to offer Joe Flacco a contract. Based on what he did last year in Cleveland and now what we've seen in a small sample size this season, how in the world is that possible? Can't Joe Flacco get a team to the playoffs?
Well, here's the thing is, I think he looks significantly better than what he did for Cleveland last year. Significantly better.
Yeah.
Just that Browns defense was so good. But I think Shane Steichen's a great offensive mind. And I think the reason their offense has been bad under Anthony Richardson isn't even just because of bad decisions. He just misses throws. You can't coach around just wide open missed throws that turn into interceptions. And Flacco's shown that. But here's the thing. If they think playing is the way for Anthony Richardson to improve, they should still play him.
Yes.
But if you think he's sitting is beneficial, then sit him. But I think at this point it is beneficial to sit him. Work on the fundamentals. Get that accuracy figured out a little bit. We'll see. But the Colts are very, very fun to watch on offense when everything's clicking. You know what, Alec Pierce?
Yeah, tell me about Alec Pierce.
He is 11th in receiving in the NFL, Rose. Where do you think he's ranked in catches? Like what range?
Oh, you're saying 11th in yards receiving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's number 1 far and away in yards per catch, I believe.
Yeah, he's 96
Yeah, that doesn't
in
surprise
catches
me.
and 11th in receiving. He's averaging 28 yards per catch. Every single week I'm watching the Colts, and it's like, oh, there's the Alec Pierce 50-yard catch, and sometimes multiple times like yesterday.
Yeah, every week on the highlight shows, I'm calling at least an Alec Pierce touchdown.
Like if you only watch
60-yard
highlights,
play.
you'd think he's like,
Randy
Right.
Moss.
yeah, he's every single week. It's 3 catches, 95 yards, a touchdown.
And finally, the Dolphins beat the Patriots 15-10 in a game which did come down to the final minute. The Patriots twice had a chance to score the game-winning touchdown. Really only once, I suppose. Jalen Polk, the rookie out of Washington, caught the ball in the back of the end zone. They rule it a touchdown with a minute to go. They look at it. Toe got down. He caught it facing Jacoby Brissett. So imagine this if you haven't seen the video of him falling back toward the goalpost in the back of the end zone. Got the toe down first, but the heel came down out of bounds. That, of course, is a rule. You have to get the heel down in that part of the... It sucks for New England. It really does. They have had very little to cheer for in terms of the forward pass. I thought that was going to be a game winner for them.
It sounds like they're going to May from Mayo's Monday press conference.
Yes.
Adam Schefter just threw that out there.
It sounds like it is possible. I think he's open to it. I'm not so sure I would do it this week against the Houston
Don't do it against
Texans.
the Texans now.
I would do it next week when I'm calling the game in London.
Yes, do it then.
So that would be great to get his debut at 9:30 in the morning, which I love that game every year. But here's the thing, like, there's never a great time, like, oh, well, this opponent, because the next 2 weeks after that, they play the Jets, whose defense is really good. The Titans, despite them sucking, have the number one passing defense in the NFL, and then you play so it's always going to be tough. I just hope they're playing him because he's ready and not because Jacoby Brissett and that passing offense is so awful.
Well, he's probably not going to be ready. Let's be honest with this. I actually talked to Kurt Warner about it and had a very interesting discussion because I said, when you signed on with the Giants in 2004, what did they explain your role was? He said they didn't talk to me. He said, I knew I was keeping the seat warm for Eli. We were actually 5-4 when they made the quarterback change. Yeah. And Eli played some horrible football, particularly against the Baltimore Ravens. Might have been the worst quarterback game in the history of the league. But he said the reason it was okay was because Eli continued to grow and didn't go into survival mode, which a lot of young guys do. He also had the ability to have it wash away, and he had the advantage of having his father, who played 15 years in the NFL, and his brother, who was an MVP in the league. He could bounce that stuff and the struggles off of those guys as well. So the support system was outstanding. He said his personality had the ability to deal with failure. And he said that's the key, is you have to understand who you're putting in there. Not just the talent, but the mentality and the makeup, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Which is it's like when you get the sit versus play right away argument. I think it can make the difference in guys who are either above average QBs or not, the guys that we debate on how actually good they are. I think the elite guys, I don't think it matters. I think those guys figure it out. So if Drake May is supposed to be a top 5 QB in the NFL one day or whatever, I don't think it matters because of all those reasons you just said. I think if he's a guy who can be above average and it all goes bad, and like you said, go in the survival mode and quick passes, go out there, then it's an issue. But I think that's an issue at the end of the day regardless.
Right. All right, boys, we're 5 weeks of the season. Through this thing, it only gets more and more fun as we continue on this wild merry-go-round in the NFL. For Justin Penik and Bobby Skinner, I am Chris Rose. Thanks so much for watching Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.